Alternative history in the Fallout world. The road to the Great War. In 1945, World War II ends with the Allies' victory, but the post-war world takes a different path. While the United States and the Soviet Union emerge as superpowers, both nations decide to focus their efforts on nuclear energy and robotics, diverting resources from the development of semiconductors and microconductor technology. This decision marks the beginning of an alternative technological path. The United States, with the massive construction of nuclear reactors, and the Soviet Union, with its focus on nuclear weapons production, led an era dominated by atomic energy. Society adopts nuclear energy for domestic and commercial uses, with vehicles and appliances powered by small nuclear reactors. Vacuum tubes remain the standard in electronics, sidelining miniaturization and advanced computing. The aesthetic of the 1950s persists. Architecture, fashion, and social values stagnate in an optimistic and patriotic vision of the future, perpetuated by constant propaganda promoting stability and unity against the communist threat. Families live in homes filled with domestic robots like Mr. Handy, designed to assist with daily tasks, reflecting a vision of progress and modernity that does not evolve over time. Technological advancements focus on robotics and nuclear-powered cars. Vehicles like the Corvega Atomic V8 become status symbols, eliminating the dependence on oil but introducing new radiation risks. Robotics advances with the creation of models like Mr. Gutsy for military use and Protectrons for security and maintenance, all operating on nuclear energy. The lack of investment in semiconductors means that computers remain bulky and expensive, accessible only to governments and large corporations. Computing systems based on vacuum tubes occupy entire rooms and lack the processing power and portability of modern computers. Energy crisis and resource scarcity, 1980 to 2020. Energy demand grows exponentially, outstripping production capacity even of advanced nuclear plants. Nations begin to fiercely compete for the remaining natural resources, exacerbating international tensions. Wars over natural resources intensify, with conflicts in the Middle East and other regions rich in uranium and oil. World powers, especially the United States and China, become directly involved, turning these areas into battlefields. Tensions between the United States and China reach unprecedented levels. The Pan-Asian alliance forms as a counterbalance to NATO. Border incidents in Alaska and the South China Sea become critical flashpoints that nearly ignite total war several times. Significant progress is made in artificial intelligence and automation for military and commercial use. Projects like Liberty Prime, a giant combat robot capable of launching nuclear weapons, reflect the militarization of technology. Military technology advances rapidly, with the development of power armor and energy weapons. The T-51B power armor becomes the standard for U.S. armed forces, providing soldiers with a significant battlefield advantage. Faced with the growing threat of nuclear war, vast underground shelter systems, vaults, are built. Vault-Tec Corporation, founded in the 2020 partners with the U.S. government to construct these shelters as part of the SAFE project. Vault-Tec Corporation is founded in the early 2020 at a time when the threat of total nuclear war becomes more imminent. The company is created by a group of visionary scientists, engineers, and entrepreneurs who recognize the need to protect the population in the event of a nuclear conflict. The founders, a group of visionary scientists and entrepreneurs, design advanced underground shelters. The company becomes a key player in preparing for a possible nuclear apocalypse. The U.S. government, concerned about the growing possibility of nuclear war with China and other powers, partners with Vault-Tec to build a national network of underground shelters. This effort is part of a massive civil defense initiative called the SAFE Project. The President of the United States signs an executive order authorizing the construction of the vaults, allocating federal funds and material resources for their realization. During the 2040 ES, Vault-Tec oversees the construction of numerous shelters at strategic locations across the country. Each vault is equipped with advanced technologies, life support systems, and capabilities to sustain hundreds of people for decades. Some vaults are also used to experiment with different forms of government, social engineering, and advanced technologies. While publicly Vault-Tec promotes its shelters as safe havens for the population, many of the vaults are intended to serve as experimental laboratories to study human behavior under extreme conditions. This hidden agenda is known only to a few in the upper echelons of the company and the government. Vault 11. Democracy under extreme conditions. The inhabitants of Vault 11 had to choose one resident each year to be sacrificed, believing that if they did not, the entire vault would be destroyed. The goal was to study power dynamics and human behavior under constant threat of death. Paranoia and fear caused severe conflict, leading to a series of manipulated elections and eventually an insurrection. In the end, the survivors discovered that the sacrifice was not necessary, revealing the cruelty of the experiment. Vault 15 was populated with people from diverse ethnic, cultural, and social backgrounds to observe how differences could be reconciled or exacerbated in a closed environment. The initial mix of cultures led to conflicts and tensions, but eventually, the residents learned to work together. When the vault opened, its inhabitants formed some of the most important factions in the wasteland, including the Khans and the people of Shady Sands. Vault 22 was designed to develop advanced techniques for agriculture and cultivation in an underground environment, using spores and fungi as the primary food source. The spores and fungi mutated, becoming a deadly plague that infected and killed almost all the inhabitants. The mutated creatures and invasive plants became a significant threat to wasteland explorers. Gender inequality. Vault 68 was populated with 999 men and 1 woman, with the goal of studying behavior and social dynamics in an environment of extreme gender inequality. Desperation and violence quickly took over the vault, with the sole woman becoming the center of conflicts and power struggles. The situation rapidly degraded, resulting in a violent social collapse. In contrast to Vault 68, Vault 69 was populated with 999 women and 1 man to study the effects of gender inequality in the opposite direction. Social dynamics in Vault 69 were also complicated, though less violent than in Vault 68. The man was treated as a valuable resource, leading to a unique social structure and different forms of conflicts and alliances. The inhabitants of Vault 112 were placed in a virtual reality simulation designed to replicate an idyllic and perfect life, controlled by Dr. Braun, a scientist obsessed with control. Dr. Braun used the simulation to torture and manipulate the residents for his own amusement, constantly changing scenarios to observe their reactions. The inhabitants remained trapped in this simulation, disconnected from the outside reality. Vault 77 was inhabited by a single person and a container full of ventriloquist dummies, with the goal of studying the effects of extreme isolation. Loneliness and isolation drove the resident to madness. The person began interacting with the dummies as if they were real people, creating a fictional world and eventually succumbing to despair. Vault 87 was used to continue experiments with the forced evolution virus, a virus intended to create super soldiers. The inhabitants were exposed to the FEV to observe mutations and side effects. The experiments resulted in the creation of super mutants, large, strong, and aggressive beings. These super mutants eventually escaped the vault, becoming a significant threat to wasteland inhabitants. Recruitment and preparations, 2060 as 2070 ACE. In the years leading up to the Great War, Vault-Tec intensifies its recruitment efforts, carefully selecting future vault dwellers through a rigorous application and evaluation process. Advertising campaigns convince the population of the importance of enrolling in their shelter program. The Great War, October 23, 2077. In a final collapse of diplomacy and international order, nuclear bombs are launched worldwide. The Great War lasts only a few hours, but its effects are devastating. Major cities around the world are destroyed, and most of the global population perishes in the nuclear fire or its aftermath. Major cities such as Washington, D.C., Beijing, Moscow, and London are destroyed in minutes by multiple nuclear detonations. Radiation and nuclear fallout render vast areas of the planet uninhabitable wastelands, with ecosystems collapsing and widespread mutations in flora and fauna. For 200 years, vault dwellers live in their underground shelters, following Vault-Tec's strict survival protocols. Experiments continue, some with disastrous results, others leading to unexpected adaptations, and the emergence of new communities and social structures. Pre-Great War events in Europe, England resource scarcity and energy crisis, 2020 to 2050. Europe faces its own resource crisis and energy tensions. With the depletion of natural resources and reliance on nuclear energy, European nations compete for control of the remaining resources. England, in particular, is affected by its dependence on North Sea oil, which begins to run dry. Like the United States, England invests heavily in nuclear energy. New nuclear plants are built to meet the growing energy demand. English society also adopts nuclear energy in transportation and industry, following a similar path to the US following Vault-Tec's example. The British government launches its own underground shelter program, known as the ARC Project. These shelters are built across the country to protect the population in the event of nuclear war. However, limited resources and internal political tensions complicate the project. Eventually, all Vault-Tec projects in England are officially cancelled, although a secret shelter is built under Buckingham Palace. The vault under Buckingham Palace is designed to house Britain's greatest minds and the royal family. However, Vault-Tec also has a hidden experiment in mind for this bunker's inhabitants. Through gases introduced via the ventilation system, the goal is to mutate the inhabitants, enhancing their personal abilities. The smart become smarter, the strong become stronger, etc. But there is a side effect. The mutants gradually lose their sanity, forgetting their original purposes. It is unclear whether this experiment was ever carried out. The catastrophe in major European cities. London. When the nuclear bombs fall, London is one of the first cities hit. The devastation is immediate, with most iconic buildings destroyed in a cloud of fire and radiation. Survivors take refuge in metro stations and improvised bunkers, but many succumb to radiation and lack of resources. Paris. Paris suffers a similar fate, with the Eiffel Tower and other monuments reduced to radioactive rubble. Survivors face the spread of diseases and mutations as they try to adapt to a hostile environment. Berlin. Berlin, a city already marked by its turbulent history, is another major victim of the Great War. The ruins of the Berlin Wall mix with new debris, and the few survivors struggle to find water and food in a contaminated landscape. Rome, the eternal city, becomes a testament to civilization's fragility. The Colosseum and St. Peter's Basilica are unrecognizable, and survivors face the difficult task of rebuilding their lives among the ruins. As survivors try to adapt, some begin to show signs of mutation. These mutations vary. Some individuals develop superhuman strength and endurance, while others acquire advanced mental abilities. However, these advantages come with side effects, such as the gradual loss of sanity and humanity. In the post-apocalyptic chaos, various factions emerge attempting to establish control. Some seek to recreate pre-war governments, while others embrace new philosophies and social organizations. In France, the Brotherhood of Light tries to unify survivors under a new code of laws. In Germany, the children of the Renaissance focus on preserving ancient knowledge. Despite their goals, these factions constantly clash. Limited resources and ideological differences lead to internal wars that destroy any attempts to establish a lasting new order. Amid the chaos, a new nation begins to take shape in Oxfordshire, England. Using the resources and knowledge available at the University of Oxford, survivors, both human and mutant, come together to form a new society. The new government, known as New England, strives to build an inclusive and resilient community. In 2081, 4 years after the Great War, a democratic government is established in New England. A minimum of laws are drafted to maintain order and promote justice. Roles and jobs are implemented for the population, and a currency based on Nuka-Cola caps, already common in the wasteland, is introduced. A president is democratically elected, with a term of 10 years, with elections scheduled at the end of each period. The first president of New England is elected in a transparent process, reflecting the will of the people. His name is Edward Harrington. A police force led by a sheriff is created to maintain law and order. Society is so committed to reconstruction and peaceful coexistence that few disturbances occur. The police, known as defenders, patrol the streets and protect the community. In the early years of its formation, one of the biggest challenges for New England was securing the resources needed to maintain order and security. One critical resource was weapons and police equipment. The Central Police Station in Oxford, abandoned and in ruins, contained the necessary equipment but also harbored unknown dangers. In 2082, a select group of defenders, led by the newly appointed sheriff, Jonathan Archer, planned a raid on the police station. The goal was to recover weapons, ammunition, and tactical equipment. The team consisted of 10 men and women, all veterans of the initial reconstruction. Upon reaching the station, the team found the building in an advanced state of disrepair. Doors and windows were broken, and the interior was covered in debris and dust. However, something else lurked in the darkness. A group of feral ghouls, former humans severely affected by radiation. While exploring the building, the group was ambushed by the ghouls. Screams and gunfire echoed through the halls as the defenders fought for their lives. The battle was fierce and chaotic. 2 team members, Sarah and Mark, were struck by the ghouls and succumbed to their injuries, while others were severely wounded. Despite the casualties, the team managed to eliminate the ghouls and secure the building. With great effort, they recovered several boxes of weapons and ammunition, as well as bulletproof vests and communication equipment. However, the loss of Sarah and Mark was a hard blow to the group's and community's morale. The team returned to New England with the necessary resources, but also with a renewed sense of their existence's fragility. The community held a tribute to the fallen, vowing that their sacrifice would not be in vain. The recovered weapons strengthened the defenders and improved the city's security, allowing for better protection against wasteland threats. In 2083, an anti-racism treaty is signed against mutants, as long as they maintain their sanity. This treaty symbolizes New England's commitment to equality and inclusion. Mutants and humans work together to build a better future, overcoming prejudices and fears. However, the treaty also establishes measures to handle negative mutations. Mutants who begin to show behavioral changes or significant mental deterioration would first be placed in custody and receive the necessary care. Ultimately, if their condition did not improve and they posed a threat to the community, they could be executed as a last resort to protect others. Determined to protect their new nation, New England inhabitants fortify the Oxfordshire perimeter. They build walls and watchtowers, using both old technology and new inventions developed by Oxford's mutated scientists. The government headquarters is established at the University of Oxford, symbolizing the union of knowledge and power. One of New England's keys to success is integrating mutants and humans. Recognizing the unique abilities of mutants, they are assigned specific roles that leverage their strengths. However, measures are also implemented to control and mitigate the side effects of mutations, especially the loss of sanity. New England's government, led by a mixed council of humans and mutants, focuses on reconstruction and maintaining order. Laws promoting justice and equality are established, learning from past mistakes to avoid falling into the same cycles of destruction. The Knights of Albion, Origin and Legend. In the months following the Great War, London was a place of despair and chaos. However, Aaron and Nick, two adventurous and curious young men, decided to face this new world as an opportunity for great adventures. While others struggled to survive, they explored the ruins of the old British capital, searching for hidden treasures and secrets. One afternoon, while investigating around Buckingham Palace, they noticed something strange, a hidden entrance that seemed to lead somewhere underground. With great excitement, they began clearing the debris and found access to a secret bunker right under the palace. On the bunker door, written in yellow, was the number 136. The bunker, which they reached after traversing a long, dark corridor, was completely empty. But what they found there would change their lives and the fate of many. In the center of the main hall, surrounded by terminals and high-tech equipment, were 20 X-01 power armors, the pinnacle of powered armor technology. Aaron and Nick could not believe their luck. Besides the power armors, they found detailed blueprints of their construction and other technical documents they did not fully understand. The bunker was also stocked with enough food and supplies to live comfortably for many years. This discovery offered them not only security, but also an overwhelming technological advantage in the desolate post-apocalyptic world. Inspired by their discovery and determined not to keep this power to themselves, Aaron and Nick decided to find worthy individuals to share it with. They wanted to form a brotherhood that would use this technology for the common good, protecting the innocent and helping to rebuild society. Inspired by the Arthurian legends they both adored since childhood, they called themselves the Brotherhood of the Knights of Albion. They decided that only 10 more people would know about the bunker and the power armors, forming a circle of 12 knights. These individuals had to be not only strong and capable, but also people of good heart, willing to follow a code of honor and justice. Aaron and Nick established a series of rigorous tests to ensure that only the most worthy would join them. Co-founders and equal leaders, Aaron and Nick made decisions together, with neither having more power than the other. Their shared vision and mutual trust formed the Brotherhood's foundation. They decided to establish their headquarters at Buckingham Palace itself, using the majestic building as their base of operations. Here they housed the squires, young, loyal, and brave individuals waiting for their chance to pass the tests and be knighted. Gender did not matter. Only bravery and loyalty did. The squires were rigorously trained and educated in the Brotherhood's ideals. Although the Brotherhood did not allow any mutants to join its ranks, they never denied help to any of them. Aaron and Nick firmly believed in humanity and the need to help all survivors, regardless of their condition. With their new armors and abilities, the Knights of Albion began patrolling the devastated lands of England. They did not seek power or wealth, but to help those in need. Soon their reputation grew, and they became known for their honor, bravery, and justice. The Knights protected settlements from bandits, ghouls, and other threats. They used their advanced technology to offer security and stability. They helped build and supply settlements, teaching survivors techniques in farming, construction, and defense. Despite their power, they remained humble and approachable, always willing to help those in need without asking for anything in return. Aaron and Nick decided that the bunker's knowledge should remain a secret, even within the Brotherhood. Only the 12 Knights would know its exact location and the resources it contained. This secrecy ensured that the power of the power armors did not fall into the wrong hands. The Brotherhood of the Knights of Albion became a beacon of hope in a dark world, demonstrating that even in the worst times, honor and humanity could prevail. Their actions inspired many and left a legacy that would endure for generations, always guided by past legends and the promise of a better future. In 2091, 10 years after New England's founding, 2 young knights of the Brotherhood of the Knights of Albion arrived in Oxfordshire. Jason and Mike, dressed in impressive X-01 power armors, caused amazement among New England residents. The New Englishmen, marveling at their appearance and technology, cautiously approached. Jason, one of the knights, recounted his story. The Knights of Albion had formed shortly after the Great War, led by Aaron and Nick, 2 visionary generals who managed to unite several survivors under a code of honor and protection. For a decade, these generals guided the faction, establishing an organized and well-armed community in what was once southern England. Mike, the other knight, explained that this was his first reconnaissance mission, having recently taken the vows as a knight. The Knights of Albion had heard rumors of a prosperous community in Oxfordshire and wanted to establish contact for possible alliances and trade. One of New England's residents, impressed by the Knights, asked them to meet the nation's president, Edward Harrington, who had recently been re-elected by the people. Jason and Mike accepted the invitation, hoping this encounter would strengthen ties between their 2 communities. When the 2 knights arrived at the University of Oxford's gates, now transformed into the town hall and city center, everyone received them expectantly and amazed at seeing the power armors. The 2 knights exited their armors with elegance and class, both dressed in white silk tunics. The president was not waiting outside, but had ordered them brought to his office. Upon entering the president's office, they found him seated. He quickly stood up and cordially greeted them, shaking their hands. They reciprocated. The president invited them to sit and offered them a glass of Irish whiskey, which they accepted graciously. "Welcome, knights. It is an honor to receive you in New England. 10 years ago, we created this nation, settling in Oxfordshire. But our intention is to expand throughout the United Kingdom and save the nation. Mr. President, you are doing an incredible job. Maintaining and developing a community like this in these times is no small feat. I've been very fortunate, and with you by my side, it will be much easier. Mike, we are deeply honored, Mr. President, but we belong to the Brotherhood of the Knights of Albion. Every action must first be taken to the round table and discussed and approved. I understand, but you must know that I am not asking for your cooperation. I am giving you an order. As citizens of New England, you must follow the orders I give you. If not, you will be judged for disloyalty to the new nation and condemned to death. As the President spoke, his friendly demeanor changed to a more serious one, with eyes that seemed ready to pop out. Jason and Mike tried to calm him down. Jason, Mr. President, we have no choice. We have sworn to remain loyal to the Brotherhood's laws. We invite you to join us and propose the same to our generals. We do not have that decision-making power. Harrington, pausing, then slowly nodding. I understand. I will soon meet with your generals. The President, regaining his kindness, invited them to spend the night, rest, and dine with him in the main hall. Nothing untoward occurred during the evening. The President's close associates were gathered around the long table in the main hall and received the knights with courteous gestures, offering them everything on the table to eat and urging them to try various delicacies. They asked many questions about their brotherhood and its purposes, and showed great interest in the anecdotes Jason and Mike told about how the Brotherhood had established more than one settlement and liberated and helped many people over the past 10 years. Tell us, Jason, how do you maintain discipline and morale in your Brotherhood? Our strength lies in honor and camaraderie. Each knight is chosen not only for their skill, but for their heart. We follow a strict code, and our loyalty to the cause and each other keeps us united. We also spend time training and educating the squires, the future knights. They represent the hope of a better future, and seeing their progress motivates us to keep going. The next morning, the knights bid farewell to everyone gathered there and climbed into their power armors. Just before leaving, Jason turned to the President. Jason, you are doing a noble task, Mr. President. Remember, do not let the desire for power interfere with your mission. Humanity needs wise and just leaders. Harrington, nodding. I will keep that in mind, Knight. Travel safely. The months passed peacefully in Oxfordshire. President Harrington continuously thought about having the Knights of Albion under his control, but the idea of the long journey to London and leaving his city's command kept him from pursuing it. One day, on a rainy and cloudy afternoon, typical of English lands, 3 vans covered with shutters and metal plates arrived and made a quick assault on the East Zone's palisade. Ramming one of their vans between 2 large metal plates forming the palisade, they managed to create a breach. They got out of the vans and entered the city. There were 12 of them. They shot the watchman on the East Tower in the head, scattering his remains on the ground. They also shot a woman named Anne, who was in charge at the armory door. A squad of New Englishmen quickly emerged from the station across from the armory and began shooting indiscriminately. A watchman on the palisade, armed with a large machine gun, managed to take down most of the assault squad, but 2 managed to reach the van. The New Englishmen repelled the enemy, but 4 patriots lost their lives that day. The disastrous event quickly reached President Harrington's ears, who concluded that the attackers knew where the weapons were stored, indicating an enemy among them. Dismissing the idea of interrogating the entire population, As they had surpassed 1,000 inhabitants according to the last census a year ago, Harrington decided he needed to meet with the Knights of Albion generals. With 2 soldiers equipped with those power armors stationed at each palisade point, it would be enough to repel any ground attack. The next morning, Harrington called for Sheriff Jonathan Archer and gave him command of the city until his return. He ordered him to call for elections if he did not return in a month. Harrington: Jonathan, I must go to London. If I don't return in a month, call for elections. Archer, shaking hands and then hugging: Good luck, Edward. Have a safe journey. The vans the bandits brought the previous day were still there. Harrington ordered them loaded with everything needed for the journey. With 13 of his best soldiers, he set out in search of new hope for New England. At dawn, the President and his squad set out, hoping that their mission would not only strengthen New England's defense, but also forge an alliance with the powerful brotherhood of the Knights of Albion. The journey was full of dangers, but Harrington knew it was a risk he had to take to secure his nation's future. The story continues. With President Harrington and his squad en route to London, the city of Oxfordshire remains under the provisional leadership of Sheriff Archer. Meanwhile, Harrington and his men face the wasteland's challenges in their quest for a crucial alliance. The tension between the need for protection and the risks of internal betrayal marks a new chapter in New England's history. The resolution of these conflicts will determine the fate of its people in a world devastated by war.